All right, folks. So on episode number 43 here, we are joined by Zach Lowy of Breaking the Lines. Zach, man, for a young dude, he has a wealth of knowledge, and he covers it all from. I mean, he was mad tweeting yesterday about the under 21 Portugal Italy game, but it came out to on the positive side for the Seleção, and we'll get into that a little bit. But he's here to preview the Euro 2020, and he is working on a series for BTL about the upcoming European Championship, and we'll get into that as well. But you can follow Zach on Twitter at Zach Lowy. Says right here that I get the camera. It's this way, down there, pointing that way. Boom, right there. And Zach is kind enough to join us for a few moments. Zach, Danny Pinto here in California. I know you're back east. Thanks for making some time, man.
Yeah, of course, no worries. I'm glad to be here, and glad to be discussing a loaded set of topics for today's podcast.
For sure, man. We appreciate your time. First off, let's go ahead and go a little off topic right from the jump, as we are going to get you to preview Euro 2020. But the Seleção is a wealth of talent right now on all levels, and it was on display yesterday during the under 21 quarterfinal against Italy. Up 2-0 right before the half. They get one scored on them, and then they open up a 3-1 lead in the second half, only to have it be tied right before 90 minutes. They did put away the Italian side in the second of the 15-minute extra time. But what were your thoughts on that performance, and then what do you think of their chances coming up Thursday against Spain in the semifinal?
Yeah, I had divided loyalties going into the game. Because I am Italian American, but obviously I love watching Portuguese football, and I love watching this team. I've had the pleasure of watching it for quite a few years now. This Renaissance of 99, generation of 1999. For the most part, you do have some players from other age groups, and it's just incredible the fact that this team has come so far with barely any game time from really the number one star of this class, João Felix, who hasn't really played with them for I think around like 4 years at this point, maybe. And so that's incredible. The fact that you have Nuno Mensch, a player who would be starting normally for this team, but is going to be with the first team this summer after a fantastic campaign with Sporting. And the same goes for, of course, Pedro Gonçalves, who has gotten his maiden call-up for the Portuguese national team this summer in the Euros, both well-deserved call-ups. And so taking away those players, taking away Francisco Trincao and Thierry Correia, who missed out due to COVID-19, as well as Gonçalo Inácio, Rubin Vinagre, a few other players such as Thomas Ribeiro, who were controversially excluded from the squad. But even without all of those players, you still have such a tough team to beat in this Esperança side from Rui George. So yeah, it was an interesting game. I had high expectations going into it just because we saw, in many ways, the two similar teams just 3 years ago with the U19 Euros in 2018. The first group stage match, I believe, between Italy and Portugal was a nail biter, and then of course the final was even better, going into extra time, and eventually Portugal edging it out 4-3 with quite a few of the same players who played yesterday against that same Italy team. So just because of that, I had very high expectations, and overall as a game, it definitely lived up to those, if not surpassed them.
You mentioned some names that either were not chosen or were excluded because of, as you mentioned, COVID. The kids are calling it COVID, I think, but there's still a wealth of talent in the in this talent pool for the Seleção. You see it right now with the senior team with Renato Sanches. Obviously, Rui Jorge had to make some difficult decisions, not only for this recent call-up, but during the game yesterday. How much? I mean, it's a great problem to have, Zach, but how much of an issue is having, and I hate this, I can't believe I'm about to say this, having too much talent to choose from if you're the manager of either one of these Seleção teams?
Yeah, I mean, it does provide what I would call a good problem to have. And we've seen that with so many other countries such as England, France, where, there's always going to be players who are unlucky to miss out. I know that we'll get into the senior team later, but overall, I think that I don't know. I think that Rubin Vinagre, if I was Rui George, I would be calling him up because he was really impressive at Famalicão. I understand, maybe going back to the U21 Euros group stage, how, okay, he didn't play much at Olympiacos, but, doing well at Famalicão. But this is, we're talking about May here, so a full half season, which, in my opinion, from what I saw of Vinagre, was enough to merit a call-up. Just looking at the fact that, originally there wasn't a single natural left back in the squad, both for the U21 Euros group stage as well as the original squad of the knockout round. When Thierry Correia, who was starting, dropped out, as a result, Rui George called up Abdul Conte, who I've mentioned before has had a good season at Moreirense. So, deserved call-ups for both him and Felipe Suarez, his teammate at Moreirense, replacing Correia and Trincao. But personally, I would have given it to Vinagre. I think that he deserved to make it. I would probably take out a right back in the squad. I was critical of the fact that, originally there were four right backs, four natural right backs that we say, Diogo Dalot, Thierry Correia, Pedro Pereira, and Tomas Tavares, who like Vinagre had, two loans, originally sent to Deportivo Alaves, didn't really play much there, and went to Farense. Unlike Famalicão, who managed to get themselves out of the relegation fight and stay up, Farense ended up going down. It's good that Tavares got some game time and, showed he's a good Liga NOS level prospect. But personally, I don't know. I would have called up Vinagre over either Tavares or Pereira. I think he was deserving, and as well as Gonçalo Inácio, who I think, alongside Tomás Ribeiro of Belenenses, was unlucky to miss out. I think if it was up to me, I would be calling him up, maybe even over Thiago Jallo, who's played a decent amount at Lille. Inácio starting for really the best defense in Europe's top 10 leagues, with Sporting, grinding out a starting spot on the right side of the back three. Personally, I don't know how you can look at a player like that and just not call him up, even if it's not just, even if it's just for like a bench warming spot. I don't know. I feel like having an Inácio there, you might have more competition, better competition than perhaps the Jallo. I do think that for me, two of the biggest disappointments yesterday against Italy were the center backs, Diogo Queiroz and Diogo Leite, who have obviously played a lot together.
Yeah, uncharacteristically, yeah.
Uncharacteristically, yeah. It's worth noting that they've been a very good center back pairing, both for Porto as well as Portugal, but neither had a great game. Despite Queiroz's assist, I don't think either. And I got to think that, Sporting fans as well as just Gonçalo Inácio will be watching that at home and thinking, how was I not, I'm not saying that Rui George should have benched him, and I can understand the appeal of not calling because you don't want that competition, and you don't want to break up that pairing, which I totally understand. But I don't know, it's just to be Inácio and to be starting for the best defense, statistically the best defense in Europe's top 10 leagues, and tonight and get called up to Slovenia, it's a bit disappointing. Personally, if it was up to me, I would have called him up. And I know there are some other players who are unlucky to miss out, such as Domingues Quina, such as I'm forgetting some names, Fabio Silva, who's done fairly well at Wolves after a tough start. But I think the two guys who can have the most to complain about are definitely Ignacio and Vinagre.
We're talking with Zach Lowy of Breaking the Lines. You can follow Zach on Twitter at Zach Lowy. You can follow Breaking the Lines at BTLVid. That's BTLVID. We're previewing here, or about to preview here, the Euro 2020 tournament where Portugal hopes to repeat as European champions. Zach, what did you think of the 26-man squad that Renato Sanches has called up for this upcoming tournament and in hopes of defending the European title?
I liked it a lot. I was pleasantly surprised with it because usually with these squads, there's a player who is unlucky to miss out. And honestly, I'm not sure if there are really many players who can say that they were unlucky to miss out. Honestly, I think that Santos he picked the closest thing to a perfect squad, in my opinion, given the options. Obviously, I would have called up Pedro Neto if he was fit.
Absolutely.
And I think if Daniel Podence was fit and hadn't gotten injured, maybe he would have had a shot to replace Neto. But neither of those ended up materializing, and both ended up getting sidelined. So with those two out, I don't think there's many players who can be that aggrieved. I think that one of the biggest, I would say that Nani is somewhat unlucky because he's had a great start at Orlando City. And I was curious to see if maybe potentially Santos doing a similar thing with that Didier Deschamps did with Karim Benzema. Obviously, completely different situations. Benzema is a much better player than Nani, and he's still playing at the top level. But maybe having that leadership would be nice to have. I don't know. But that being said, I didn't have Nani in my predicted Euro squad. And I think he's unlucky. But for a 34-year-old player who's playing in MLS, like to not get into the Portugal squad, like you can't be that furious. No offense.
Yeah, I mean, especially with aspirations of winning the tournament, not just participating in it, right?
Yeah, and also just he is 33, 34. You want to move on. You want to have in general younger players, and Portugal do have a very, they have a decent amount of veterans that can allow them to cope without Nani's veteran presence, I think. So apart from Nani, I think Andre Gomes can't be that unlucky. He hasn't done that well at Everton this season. But I would say that João Mario definitely can feel a bit left out. I know that I think that when I was going through my predictions for my Euro squad, I wasn't sure whether to go with William Carvalho or João Mario. I went with William just because I think despite the fact that he hasn't played much at Real Betis, he still has plenty of experience at the national team level, plenty of experience playing under Fernando Santos, and in a variety of roles, can really slot in. So I think that it was the right choice to pick him just because of how important he can be when he's on his game. But João Mario has been very good alongside João Palhinha in that Sporting midfield. So I think that if there's any midfielder who can be unlucky to miss out, it's probably João Mario. As for defense, I was a bit surprised to see Nelson Semedo being called up over Ricardo Pereira.
Me too.
Obviously, Cedric Suarez beat both of them out to the roster spot in the March World Cup qualifiers. But I personally, I picked Ricardo Pereira in my Euros 26-man Euro squad. But with that being said, he has had an injury-filled season. He hasn't really gotten back to his best form yet. And if he hadn't suffered a few injuries and had been in top form right now, which he isn't, frankly, I think he would be on that pin. But unfortunately, he was perhaps one of the victims of the Euros being pushed back a year, because this has been a tough 2020-21 for Ricardo Pereira, who I think will bounce back. And I think that just the fact that Samado, unlike Cedric and Ricardo, has been playing regularly. Cedric kind of bizarrely going from like one of the, shall we say, the surprise performers in this Mikel Arteta's Arsenal team, to kind of being frozen out, not really playing, even over guys like Calum Chambers. I don't think there was any expectation that, you can't go from a bench warmer at Arsenal to a squad player for Portugal. Like, even with 26 players, that's just not happening.
And then, depending on who you ask, I mean, not picking someone from Orlando City is probably the same thing as not picking someone who plays at Arsenal right now. But that's just another story. That's just a dig from a Spurs fan. That's all.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's the same, but the fact is, like, I think that Nani's more unlucky to miss out than Cedric. It's too bad for Cedric, because he does have that experience. Of course, was one of the key players in Portugal's Euro 2016 victory, and can play both sides. But I think that also Samado, the fact that he hasn't had his best season at Wolves. Obviously, adapting to a new league, adapting to playing as a wingback, adapting to a new system, but he has still been starting and playing regularly. And I do think that he's a better defensive choice than a Ricardo Pereira, especially a Pereira who really isn't in top form, and who hasn't even has played a lot as a winger this season, not really that much as a fullback. I think that Ricardo is a better player than Samado when he's on form, but to pick Samado, who's been starting pretty much week in and week out, who's kept his fitness, I don't think that it's that much of a controversy. I can see why he went with it. And honestly, I don't think that Samado has gotten like drastically worse as a player over the past 12 months. It's just his team has gotten drastically worse.
A little bit.
This is a pretty bad Wolves team, which resulted in Nuno Espirito Santo sacking, and I think it's pretty hard to shine if you're a Samado. So, not excusing his so-so form, but the fact is he's starting regularly in the Premier League. He's been decent enough to continue starting, and he really hasn't changed much as a player. I would say that it's more the team that's changed, if anything. And the fact is, yes, he isn't starting at Barcelona anymore, but he's still starting in arguably the most competitive league in football. Okay, and that's just something that Ricardo Pereira or Cedric Suarez have not been able to do in the Premier League. Looking at that, but yeah, I think probably the biggest surprise of it all was the
Ronaldo. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I don't know what nonsense sees in that guy. I really don't. We're taking a chance, Zach. We're taking a chance by taking this guy, but we'll see what happens.
Once again, Fernando Santos' pro sporting bias. Cristiano Ronaldo choice, but we'll see what this kid has to prove. I don't know, but anyways, I think the biggest surprise of it was Pedro Gonçalves, who got called up for the first time in his career to the senior Portuguese national team. And I think that going into this tournament, going into the build up of it, a lot of people are asking, okay, who should Santos take? We know that Ruben Diaz and Pepe, if they are fit, okay, they're going to start. Like, that's just not up for debate.
Sure.
We know that Jose Font is going to be a good deputy and ready to step in whether. Now, who are we going to pick as the fourth choice? Okay, are we going to pick Ruben Semedo, who has kind of had a renaissance at club and country since joining Olympiacos? Are we going to pick Domingos Duarte, who has done pretty well since leaving Sporting and joining Granada, but who doesn't have that much experience at the national team level? I think only has 2. So, and of course, Luis Neto, who was called up in Pepe's absence. there was a lot of asking, who is Santos going to pick for that fourth CB spot? And he ends up surprising us all and not picking any, and focusing the extra roster spots from the 26 on other positions such as midfield and attack. I think that was very much a surprise from a pretty conservative coach in Fernando Santos. That's just not something you really expect him to do. But personally, I like the move a lot because, assuming neither of Diaz or neither Diaz nor Pep get injured or suspended during this tournament, okay, that's going to be the starting center back pairing. It's not going to be anybody else. I don't think there's any chance of of Santos breaking up that pairing. Okay, it's going to be that. If one of them gets injured or suspended, okay, you've got Jose Font. You've got Jose Font available to step in, who's a legend for Portugal and is still a very competent defender who's had a fantastic season at Lille. I believe the second best defense in Europe after Sporting. So another great option. And also you have Danilo Pereira, who has done well and will probably be starting as in that defensive midfield position for Portugal, but can definitely slot in to that center back role. In fact, I would argue his best performance for PSG this season came against Bayern Munich as a center back, and showing that he can be a valuable option in that role. And if he does end up getting slotted into that role, then a player like João Palhinha or William Carvalho can slot in, and it would be, I would imagine, fairly seamless for both of them. So I think that Santos made the right move in only calling up three natural center backs, and obviously having Danilo as an option if things go from bad to worse. I think that the fact is, if Pedro Gonçalves did not make the squad, I don't know. I feel like if Portugal end up going out in the semifinals, like, you could definitely argue, man, what if we had Pedro Gonçalves? What if we had his ability to create plays out of nothing?
And you're talking about the under 21 if they go out to Spain, right?
I'm talking about this. I'm talking about the Euros.
Okay. So you have us in the semifinals. All right, I like it. I like it already.
No. I'm saying if Portugal, hypothetically stating, if Santos did not call up Pedro Gonçalves, okay, and Portugal get all the way to the semifinals, and then get eliminated, because Portugal's goal should be winning this damn thing.
Absolutely.
Like, that's what they need to. This isn't 2006 anymore. That's what they need to aspire to, winning it. That should be the standard. So if they go into the semifinals and get knocked out, and without Pedro Gonçalves, I think there's definitely a contingent, I'd say at least, of Portuguese fans who think, what if we had Pedro Gonçalves? Because the fact is, if he didn't make it, which I think I expected him not to make it, I think that most people expected him not to make it. If he did not make the squad, he would be by far the most unlucky exclusion, because he has had a fantastic season at Sporting. He's had a better season than João Felix, than, frankly, most Portuguese attackers, there aren't many Portuguese attackers or midfielders who've had a better season than him. Like, just speaking frankly, if you look at just his impact, his importance, I know that Portugal isn't the Liga NOS isn't the best league in the world, but what he's done is nothing short of incredible. And I think he definitely deserves to be in the 26-man squad.
It's an interesting situation because the way everything went down with COVID in the last 15 months or so, like, the schedules have all just been changed just dramatically. And I was having a conversation with Alex Gonçalves of Tuga Scout a few months back, where we were discussing the World Cup roster and also Rui Jorge's roster for the group play in the under 21s, and we were thinking, like, because it's a single tournament, especially on the under 21 side, would this be the under 21 side that would go all the way through the tournament? Who knows what the rules and stuff. And obviously that wasn't the case because Pedro Gonçalves was selected for the senior side this round. His impact, you would think, would be much bigger on the under 21 side than it will be on the senior side, and we'll see what happens. Without us knowing what that conversation was like between Renato Sanches and Rui Jorge, which I'm assuming there was a conversation about taking a focal point from the under-21s and moving them up to the senior squad, with both tournaments being so important to each of the teams. Does Renato Sanches, in your opinion, Renato Sanches take Pedro Gonçalves to the senior squad, knowing the impact that he would have on the under-21s if he wasn't going to have Gonçalves be not a focal point, but an important part maybe of the defense of the European title?
Look, I mean, I love this U21 team. I love watching it a lot more than I love watching the senior team. Honestly, they just play such beautiful football, and I've really enjoyed watching these kids really grow up and become men. Watching a player such as Trincao or Diogo Queiroz going from the U17 level all the way up to the U21. It's been fantastic. That being said, the priority has to lie with the senior team. Okay, the U21 Euros is every 2 years, usually every 2 years, if not for a global pandemic. The Euros are every 4 years, and frankly, as great as it is for Portugal to win and compete at the youth level, which they have been doing, the fact is the senior team is where the big bucks are made, shall we say, where
Sure.
legacies are written. Okay, so I don't think that Pote will be a day one starter, and I don't think he necessarily should be. Looking at the competition in midfield and attack, I think that the front three will probably be Bernardo Silva, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Diogo Jota. Midfield is a bit trickier. I think you would have Bruno Fernandes in that attacking midfield role, probably Danilo Pereira in the defensive midfielder, and then the other one is really anybody's guess. Go between so many different players.
Absolutely.
So I'm just not sure if I don't know if Pote, given the fact that yes, he's had an incredible season, but has he had a better season than Bruno Fernandes? And more importantly, has he done more at the international level than Bruno Fernandes? I don't think either are true. But with that being said, Pedro Gonçalves, I think, can be a very important player, both playing in the front three as well as in the midfield. I think that he offers such a unique threat that I think that at the end of the day, if you have that kind of player who can just give you 15 good minutes off the bench every game, for me, if that player who, in my opinion, is capable of turning around, of changing your Euros fortunes drastically, just from 15, 20 minutes per game, for me, that's more important than a player starting with the U21 side, especially given the fact that, frankly, Pote, I'm not saying that the U21 team doesn't need him, but he didn't exactly stand out in the group stage, in my opinion. I thought that other players did more than him. And he has had the best season of the bunch. But for me, what that says is I think that this U21 side can win it without him. I don't know if they will. Spain are obviously a very tricky opponent. And then if they do go through, if they do eliminate Spain, facing off against one of Germany or the Netherlands in the final, that's going to be very tricky as well. So, we'll see what happens with that. But I think that what we've seen in the first 4 games is that this team is good enough to win the tournament without Pedro Gonçalves. And on the other hand, I think that you have to allocate your resources to the senior team. That's why Nuno Mendes, despite the fact that he probably won't be starting, he's still going to be on the plane.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and same thing goes with João Felix, right? It's not, in an ideal world, there would be a balance. But the fact is, the senior team, that's what's going to that you need to allocate your resources as a country to winning the Euros. That's what's most important. So we'll see what happens with Pedro Gonçalves within the Euros. Hopefully, he does get some good minutes in. But in general, I think that you need to call up your strongest team, even at the risk of damaging your youth teams.
You brought up the term legacy, and I guess the perfect example of that is the golden generation of the late 80s, early 90s. Won those youth World Cups, but they are more remembered for not winning a major trophy at the senior level. So your point is very well taken. We're talking with Zach Lowy of Breaking the Lines here as we're previewing Euro 2020. We're talking obviously the Seleção, and then we'll get to a quick overview of the tournament overall here. But just to kind of tie into something that you wrote about a few days ago, not that they're the same player, but Pedro Gonçalves could be this year's Renato Sanches, and you wrote a pretty in-depth article of Renato Sanches' discovery in Portuguese football. Without giving the entire article away here, give the listeners and the viewers here just a thumbnail of that piece, and we'll make sure to link it on this episode.
Yeah, thank you. I wrote an article for Breaking Lines on Renato Sanches, basically talking about his childhood, his breakthrough to the first team at Benfica, getting that big move to Bayern, becoming the golden boy, and that breakthrough sensation within the 2016 Euros. And his time at Bayern didn't go as we would have hoped. Eventually got loaned out to Swansea City before leaving for Lille in the summer of 2019. And really, he's been so good in France and so important in Lille, winning their first league title in 10 years. So that was basically what the article is about. Renato is a player who I've been following since his first weeks as a professional. At Benfica, a player who always caught my eye, and who I'm really happy to be seeing, doing very well at Lille.
Yeah, it's a great read. I read it earlier today to make sure I knew who I was speaking with here. But it's very in depth. It's discovered at a very young age. For a lot less than what Bitcoin is going for nowadays, but it's just one of those stories that's it's a story as old as time with some of these discoveries of these young players, and make sure to give it a read over at Breaking the Lines. So Zach, obviously the roster itself for the Euros is a strong one. We know what we're looking for here. We know what the team is. I mean, it's a much more, in terms of on paper, it's a much more talented team than the team that lifted the trophy 5 years ago. They are in a murder of a group with Germany, with France, and with Hungary. Given how well you like the roster for Portugal, what do you think are their chances simply of getting out of the group? As they got out of 2016 as the third place team. We obviously don't want to hope for that same result unless it gives us the same result, in the knockouts later. But what do you give? What chances do you give the Seleção of getting out of their group, given the competition that's facing them?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of, if not the most talented Portuguese squad ever. And with that being said, getting out of this group is anything but a guarantee. This is one of the craziest, if not the craziest, group of death I can remember. And it's even crazy because this isn't even a World Cup. This is like Euros, and yet so much talent, so much danger consolidated in one group. I don't think that Hungary will be much of a threat, especially with Dominik Szoboszlai missing out. But we'll see. There are always some.
Zach, they're playing at home.
They are. Right.
Know, they make the play. They qualify via the playoff, and what are they rewarded with? They're rewarded with home matches. I'm like, okay, we should have gone that route.
Yeah. They also wouldn't be playing if it wasn't for Szoboszlai.
That's true.
And his goal. And I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. I honestly haven't followed this Hungary team that much, and so I can't comment too much on them. But it's going to be a shame to not see Szoboszlai. But yeah, we'll see what happens with them. But looking at, I mean, the reigning world champions, as well as the world champions from 2014, to be in that same group as Portugal, absolutely insane. I mean, you have the champions from 2014, 2016, 2018, all in the same group. It's really nerve-wracking. But I back Portugal. I think that they will finish. I don't think they'll finish third place. I think that they have what it takes to, I would say, finish second. I would back them to finish second because, we'll see what happens with Germany. They have looked, I think, shakier than their perhaps indestructible self of a few years prior. They look somewhat shaky under Joachim Low, who will obviously step down and be replaced by Hansi Flick at the end of the tournament. We'll see what happens with them. Still have some fantastic players who are in a lot hot form, such as Antonio Rudiger and Kai Havertz coming off that great Champions League final performance. You have players such as Joshua Kimmich and Timo Werner, who can definitely burn Portugal if he's feeling it. So we'll just have to see what happens. But I back Portugal to finish ahead of Germany. France, on the other hand, this France squad, I think it might be even better than this Portugal team, especially with Karim Benzema coming back. I'm just fascinated to see that dynamic. And I do think that Didier Deschamps himself must have looked at that group and thought, wow, I'm going to need something special. I need to patch things up with Benzema because Benzema might be what I need to finish top of that group. So Portugal are not only going up against the world champions, they're going up against the world champion side with some players who were not available in Russia, such as Karim Benzema, who I think is going to cause Portugal a lot of problems. And we'll see what happens. I know that I know that Ruben Diaz and Pep are not a center back pairing to be trifled with, shall we say? But I don't know if they'll be able to handle it. But I'm just absolutely I'm super excited to see how this group shapes up. Portugal, Germany, and France all in the same group. Probably the craziest group of depth that I can remember, even at the club or country level. Just absolutely insane. And I honestly would not put any money, even if I was a betting man, I would not put any money on any team to finish first or second or third, because honestly, it could go either way.
So Zach says Hungary fourth for sure. Put your money there. We're talking with Zach Lowy here of Breaking the Lines as we're previewing Euro 2020 for the Seleção. Zach, let me get your thoughts real quick now on, okay, let's say for the sake of argument here that Portugal, Germany, and France, they all make it out. There's still a lot of competition in these other groups, in these other five groups that will give any of these three squads, even though as good as they are, that'll give them issues. Let's look at the tournament here as a whole, a brief thumbnail of what fans can expect. One, do you think the winner is coming out of Portugal's group? I won't ask you for a prediction on if it'll be France or Portugal. So I don't want people to make you mad.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no need for that. But there's a lot of talent in these other groups. This to me looks like, even though the UEFA insists on expanding and FIFA wants to expand so that everybody qualifies, it does seem to me that we are in a sweet spot of talent in terms of this era of football, that there are a handful of teams that can make a claim to being, one of, if not the favorite to win this thing. What do you think of the tournament overall in terms of what could happen?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I don't know. I don't think there's a single front runner. Back in 2018, there may not have been at the start, but I think that France were pretty dominant and pretty much cakewalked the entire competition. And I don't think that'll happen this time around. I think that there's a lot more parity. I think looking at the squads of France, Portugal, Italy, I think definitely a dark horse who have been extremely consistent under Roberto Mancini. They all have a good shot. Can never count out Germany, although I personally don't think that they finish ahead of France and Portugal. They still have a very strong squad and a proven winner in Joachim Low. The Netherlands, I think that losing Ronald Koeman and replacing him with Frank de Boer is a really big downgrade. And I don't think that they will be able to mount a serious challenge for it. But we'll see what happens. They obviously have a ton of talent in their squad, even with players such as Virgil van Dijk missing out. They could definitely do some damage. England, arguably the strongest squad in this entire tournament. So much talent. Looking at just they are absolutely loaded in attack. I don't even think that Portugal's. I don't think they're. I wouldn't put them on the same. I think that England might have a bit more firepower than Portugal. I mean, looking at players such as Gary Payne, Jadon Sancho, Jack Grealish, Phil Foden. It's just absolutely incredible. But I'm not that hot on Southgate as a coach. I'll be honest. I think that's, I don't think England are going to win it just because I think that Southgate.
It's not coming home, Zach?
I hope not. I mean, I don't know. I would be happy for my English friends and followers if they win. But honestly, it's also pretty funny to see England lose. Like, no offense, but,
it's a Portugal podcast, man. Make fun of them all you want.
But England have one of the strongest squads as well, and I think we'll probably end up getting to the Final Four. So yeah, Italy, Spain, England, France, Portugal, even Turkey, who I think could be the dark horses of this entire tournament, playing some incredible football lately. Obviously destroyed Netherlands a few months prior with a hat trick from Burak Yilmaz. I wouldn't count them out either. I think they can make some serious noise. Apart from that, I think that potentially Spain could be interesting. I don't really know. One thing that kind of upset me was seeing Luis Enrique calling up only 24 players, and I'm like, if you're going to use the extra spot, just use all three of them.
Sure.
I don't. If you want to stick with your normal one, we can go with 23. What's the point in doing in the middle? What's the point in excluding two players like, for example, Iago Aspas or Jesus Navas, who could have been very useful for him. And that's another reason why I think that Santos did a great job of using all three of his extra roster spots. But I don't know. I think that Spain might end up having the same issues as they've had in, shall we say, the post Xavi Iniesta era, and just not enough edge in attack. I think that might be their downfall, especially if they play Alvaro Morata. I personally think that Gerard Moreno would be a better option as a center forward. I don't know. I think that Spain, they have shown some promising signs of life, but I don't know. I feel like they still need another 2 or 4 years until they can make an attempt to be what they were in 2008, 2010, 2012.
We're talking with Zach Lowy here of Breaking the Lines. Great to have him on the podcast to preview Euro 2020, both on the Seleção side, and we just got a little bit of an overview of the rest of the tournament. Zach, before we let you go here, you obviously have a huge. I mean, your Twitter feed is just unreal, man. I don't know when you sleep. I don't know when you have time to eat. I don't know when you have time to even watch the soccer that you cover, because you are always on Twitter. I want to go over a couple of things. First, the origin of Breaking the Lines. How did that come about? And I also want to talk to you about a couple of projects that you have going on. But let's first talk about Breaking the Lines. You've been at this for a while, even though you're a young dude. How did Breaking the Lines come about, and what was the impetus of that?
Breaking Lines, I formed Breaking Lines after my freshman semester of college, and it was a guy, Thomas Anderson, who approached me, saw my Twitter feed, and wanted to essentially convert my threads into articles and try to make a website from that. So he, suggested making a project, and from there, I came up with the name Breaking the Lines, and so yeah, we formed Breaking the Lines, and initially, started posting some videos as well as some articles. Now we've definitely gotten more article focused, but yeah, we are really just trying to push the boundaries of football journalism and football analysis, always trying to push ourselves to be better and cover football, even better, especially Portuguese football. And I won't give away any spoilers, but we are working on a collaboration with a major Portuguese football company this summer. So super excited to be announcing that soon.
Nice.
So yeah, it's really spiraled into something incredible. And yeah, it's going to be a big summer, no doubt, for Breaking Lines.
Yeah, and we mentioned the article that you just wrote about the Renato Sanches story. Portuguese football is something that you and the folks at Breaking the Lines do a great job of covering. You just had Tom Kundert on your Corta Linhas podcast a few weeks back, and also someone who I don't think gets enough run in terms of being Portuguese in the media here, and it's a shame I haven't had her on yet, because I follow her on Twitter. But you've had Gabby Amato of BN Sports on your most recent podcast of Corta Linhas. How was that interviewing her, and what's her take on Portuguese football and her time at BN?
Yeah, it was awesome to have Gabrielle on last week. On Corta Linhas, which is my weekly podcast dedicated to Portuguese football, and obviously the Portuguese translation of Breaking the Lines, somewhat. But yeah, it was great to have her on. She had a busy schedule, so I had to wait a little bit to have her. But yeah, I had her on right after her beloved Sporting won the league title. And was able to speak with her for I think 90 minutes, or probably more than that. We ended up having to cut up the podcast into 3 segments, but it was great. As somebody who usually has Portuguese people on the Corta Linhas podcast, this week I'm having Luis Cristóbal, a Portuguese journalist, on this week's Corta Linhas. It was just nice to have somebody who is not just Portuguese, but Portuguese American.
Sure.
And I think that's something that it's been a pleasure to meet so many, I think, Portuguese Americans who have their own unique experiences from places really wide ranging, from California, New Jersey. Gabrielle, I believe, is from New Jersey, but it lives in Miami, obviously, with BN Sports. It's really nice to get that. And obviously, one of the things I love most about the U.S. is that melting pot that you get to meet people with diverse backgrounds, with diverse passions. So yeah, it was great to have her on. We joked how we are kind of like the only two Americans with record subscriptions. And
You went gold. You went gold on the subscription.
So it's funny because David Nova, the executive editor of Record, he had been trying to convince me for a while to get a subscription, so I finally did, and I ended up renewing it. I just like it. I was considering also doing the same for some other outlets like Ojogo and La Bola, but yeah, I like Record a lot. Um, I was actually reading an article previously about Florentino Luis, who was doing some charity work for his first club, for his old neighborhood. And I really like that story, so I decided to sign up for Gold. And it's nice because you get like, obviously it doesn't make you instantly fluent in Portuguese, and it doesn't give you any superpowers with being a Portuguese football expert, but it does definitely encourage you and gives you some stories. And unfortunately, I can't be in Portugal right now. And it will probably be a while until I am back in Portugal. But, I do think that being able to read in Portuguese, being able to read a Portuguese outlet like Record, not necessarily that, but it could be Abola, could be Ojogo, could be Renaissance, whatever, definitely helps you to connect and to be, constantly up to date with, what's the latest story, what's the deal with Ruben Amorim and the, legal controversies that he's in. What's the deal with, is Carlos Mané going to leave Rio Ave? It's nice just to stay up to date. And I have enjoyed having a Record subscription.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, you mentioned the Portuguese American, tilt on that, and it's one of the reasons why this podcast got started 3 years ago, and we just passed the 3-year mark of the podcast, and a guy that you and I both have a lot of respect for and admiration for is Tom Kundert, who kind of put the Portuguese news in English, template out there for all of us to enjoy, and we've benefited a lot from that, and obviously this podcast is in a huge way a reason why, or due to him. You had him on, I mentioned a few weeks back. How was connecting with Tom, and what did you get from your conversation with the Godfather?
Yeah, he really is the Godfather. It was amazing to have Tom on. Such a nice, humble guy who has really birthed the English Portuguese content for so many of us. You see all these great accounts such as Alex Gonçalves, Próxima Jornada, and what I'm trying to do with Breaking Lines and Corta Linhas in covering Portuguese content. I don't think that's possible without Tom Kundert. And hopefully it influences even more because, frankly, as good as it is to read Portuguese and study it as a language and try to tap into that, not everybody is going to be capable of it, and it shouldn't be a barrier for you, and so that's what we're trying to do with Corta Linhas, with Breaking Lines, in carrying it over to an English-speaking audience, and allowing them to get updated on what's happening. But yeah, obviously none of that is possible without Tom Kundert paving the way with Portugal. He's done just absolutely incredible things, and I can't wait to have him on again next season.
All right, before we let you go, man, I want you to make sure we get the proper promotion of a couple of items that you guys are working on over at Breaking the Lines. First, the Euro magazine series that's coming out soon, probably in the next few days here, and then obviously a series that I believe you just finished, right? Your project on Marseille. Give us a preview of the Euro magazine, and then just a little bit of your work with the Marseille series as well.
Yeah, so starting off the Marseille series, it's a 6-part series. I still have yet to drop parts 5 and 6. And it's basically about Marseille and the rise and fall of Bernard Tapier's Marseille. Bernard Tapie was a businessman who came up in France in like the 80s. It essentially became the French Donald Trump. I'll leave that. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But yes, essentially became the French Donald Trump. Had his own like The Apprentice style show. and had ended up getting having a ton of success with his biking team and with his companies, basically ended up peddling his wealth into buying Marseille for actually a symbolic franc. It was literally in so much debt that he bought it for I think it would be 20 cents now.
Oh, wow.
And used his wealth to basically build it into the best team in France. But and France and Marseille ended up becoming actually the first and the only French team to win a major European trophy. That has not yet been repeated by winning the first ever Champions League final in 1993 against Fabio Capello's Milan. But the end of the story, I'll just say it's not as sweet as a first ever Champions League victory for a French team. So I'll just leave it at that.
All right.
It's a 6-part series on Breaking Lines, and yeah, I will be releasing parts 5 and 6 later on this week. But yeah, and right, with regards to the Euros magazine, so this is a digital magazine that we are going to release this week with 180 plus pages of content.
Oh, wow.
And spoiler alert, I wrote on Portugal, and basically just discussing, how they're looking ahead of this, talking about certain things that could make or break their campaign, as well as a flashback. So yeah, there are our Euros magazine. It has somewhat similar, shall we say, patterns for different countries, but each country has its own unique flair because of the wide range of authors. So really, you've got a lot of everything. You've got some scouting reports. You've got some great artwork. You've got some great previews on every single country. You've got a lot, and it's for a very modest price. So yeah, we are going to be releasing it this week, a digital magazine. And yeah, I'm super proud and super happy to be finally releasing it on Breaking Lines.
Nice, man. Well, congratulations on that. I can't wait to read about your prediction of Portugal winning. That's really nice of you to put that out there. I'm kidding. I won't hold you unless you did. I guess we'll have to find out. We'll have to subscribe and find out. Zach, it's been a blast to finally connect with you, man. And congratulations on all your success, and thanks for making some time with us and for us on this preview of Euro 2020, looking at the Seleção and also a little bit of U21 talk. You can follow Zach on Twitter at Zach Lowy, and follow Breaking the Lines at BTLvid. Again, man, just a pleasure to have you on, and we look forward to having you on again sometime in the future.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I can't wait to be on again soon.